Welcome, everyone, to the July Ignite CDA Board Meeting. If you'll rise and help me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Take and remove all hats.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public comment. Now is the time for some public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on into the approval of last month's board meeting.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from June 19th, 2019.
Okay,
Second?
moved and seconded. Any discussion, corrections, edits? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, motion carries. Presentation by the Croc Community Center. Is Kip here?
I am filling in for Kip. I'm Christy Markham. Do I need to speak in the
So
microphone?
please come on up and introduce yourself, please. Again.
I'm Christy Markham. I'm the development director at the Coeur d'Alene Croc Center. And as you may remember, it was 10 years ago that the Croc Center opened its doors to this community. And we had a guess of what that would mean for our citizens. And in the 10 years, we've revealed even more exciting things that have happened. Just want to read a couple of those to you. 5,390,151 membership entries in 10 years. That's a few more people that live in this community. It must mean
Jeez.
that a lot of people needed it many days. 406,993 people have attended a performance in the Croc Theater. 1,609 kids in need have received warm winter clothing. 5,077 people have taken an art, dance, or STEM class, and I must say at a very affordable or free price. And so I'm here tonight because there was really only 30 major funders that stepped up, that they saw that hole in the ground and they knew the possibilities in supporting this project with the Salvation Army. And Ignite CDA, the former Lake City Development Corporation, was one of those funders, one of the two highest funders. And so I get to present to you tonight this lovely founding donor certificate. It includes those stats on there. Those were worth putting in writing. The other one that I wanted to mention is I did the numbers myself. It is 1 in 3 people in Kootenai County that directly benefit from the people and the facility and the programs at the Croc Center. That's pretty amazing work, in addition to all your other projects. So may you feel very good about that. Who gets the plaque?
Thank you very much. Mr. Tony Burns down there, please.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any comment or on that? Because that is some amazing statistics, so
It is.
thank you.
It's an amazing program.
If you build it, they'll come. Next,
Yes.
the Finance Committee reports, Commissioner Arman.
Okay, it's a fairly long one today, so bear with me. Starting out with the Lake District balance sheet, the Lake District experienced a $2,156,907 decrease in cash assets from May month end, primarily due to large projects such as the NICE project at NIC and the Memorial Grandstand project. The fixed assets were no change, and other assets, the Lake District 2016 Series Note Reserve Account increased by $102 for the month of June. The liabilities and fund balance bonds were no change. All other liability parameters were either unchanged or normal for the month, including the 2% credit due to the arts line of item due to the county increment check received in June. The Lake District P&L, the Lake District received $212,978 excuse me, in tax increment revenue from the county in June. Agency-funded initiatives, as we mentioned earlier, the NICE project was a payment of $1,093,487. The Memorial Grandstand project was $1,041,455. Professional fee line item is comprised mainly of the following two payments. HDR, $70,111. And the Atlas Site Planning for Welsh Comer, $176,050. Property divestitures, net line item of value $22,600 reflects the deposit related to the 311 Lakeside Avenue sale. All other P&L expenditure line items are either in line or normal operating for the month. Moving on to the River District, the balance sheet, assets, the River District experienced $44,481 increase in cash assets from May month end. The liabilities and fund balance, all liabilities and parameters, either unchanged or normal for the month, including the 2% credit due to the yards line item to the June county increment check. The River District P&L, the River District experienced $55,551 in tax increment revenue from the county in June. Agency-funded initiatives, the Stimson Mill Site Atlas Project, Phase 1, $2,875 for Welsh Comer payment for planning efforts. All other P&L expenditure line items were in line or normal for the operating month. So that is the financial report for the Lake and River Districts. Any questions? Moving on down to the payables. I guess we're going to payables next, yes. Being as the middle of the year and we've just received the increment check, it's time to make a lot of payables. First of all, check for $300 to Elam and Burke for Lake District or URD District initiatives. Holly Troxel, $2,764. The majority of this was for legal counsel, $1,976 for general legal counsel, $788 relating to the Health Corridor Initiative, the Memorial Grandstand, and 311 Lakeside Avenue sale. The semi-annual payments, there's a considerable number here. The Chamber of Commerce DDA, all principal, $1,233.98. Ice Plant IRA, all principal, $26,378.72. 609 Sherman Avenue Lofts IRA, all principal, $17,024.23. Riverstone West Phase 1 OPA, all principal, $182,358.40. Riverstone West Phase 2 IRA, $72,309.17, of which $61,051.94 was principal, $11,257.23 was interest. Mill River Seniors Apartments IRA, all interest, $5,640.27. Riverstone West Apartments IRA, all interest, $6,081.26. Riverstone West Apartments 3 IRA, all interest, $3,338.16. The Circuit at Saltese IRA, it was $17,313.90, of which $13,994.08 was principal, $3,319.82 was interest. The Washington Trust Lake District Bond 2016 Series 2 payment of $907,202.07. The Washington Trust Lake District Bond 2017 Series, $599,510.99. And the Washington Trust River District Bond 2019 series was $945.72. The Coeur d'Alene Downtown Association Events Contract second payment of $9,375. All total semi-annual interest payments, $2,204,711.87. The next item was the Innovation Collective 2019 Think Big Festival sponsorship for $2,000. And that is it. So the total for payables for this month was $2,209,775.87. Pretty good sized month. That is the payables.
Thank you, sir. So that's the financial and payables,
Should we make a motion on those and then proceed?
and then move
to
into the
next?
budget. Okay,
Let's
you
do it.
bet.
I'll make a motion to approve the financials and the payables for July 2019 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the financials and the payables. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, motion carries.
So then we'll go to the amended fiscal year 2019 budget. Tony, you're going to take that?
Yes, sir, Commissioner, and just a fine job on going through all those numbers on the payables. You nailed every one to the penny, so very well. So just trying to get a screenshot here of, so everybody can see as best they can. A little too big. So wanted to visit with the board about the proposed FY19 amended budget. So you see the graphic on the screen and you have a copy of this in front of you. So what I'm proposing for the amended fiscal 19 budget includes the following comments. Under revenues for the fiscal year 2019, the estimated property tax increment revenue decreased from $6.7 million to $6.1 million due to the establishment of final levy rates. As you recall, we don't know what the levy rates are when we set these budgets, so we kind of use the previous years and the levy rates change, and so that kind of dictates our revenue stream. Property rental receipts, this increased from $14,500 to $23,000 due to planned delay of property divestiture program in the Lake District. The interest in miscellaneous funds line item increased from $7.8 thousand to $16.6 thousand, reflects a payroll audit adjustment from the River to Lake District. The note draws line item, this decreased from $8.9 million to $2.4 million, which reflects that draws on the River District 2019 $7 million note did not materialize as planned. And property divestitures. This line item decreased from $2 million to $1.8 million, reflects a timing realignment regarding Lake District property divestitures. The original value contained proceeds from the sale of 4 North Park Drive lots and the sale of the 301 and 311 Lakeside Avenue properties. This amended value of $1.8 million value reflects the revised values for those property sales. So we realized a little bit less than we planned for. As far as expenses, the professional services line item, this cost increase reflects additional legal counsel costs for the agency district initiatives. Under notices, you'll see a big jump. This cost increase reflects additional public notices required for the Atlas Millside Initiative. That was the creation of the Atlas District and the Lake and River District boundary adjustment, those plan modifications. Quite a few legal notices had to be published to reflect those modifications. The public art, a cost decrease primarily reflects less tax increment revenues realized versus initial budget plans. And for the viewing audience, the board voluntarily transfers 2% of the tax increment revenue realized by each district to the City of Coeur d'Alene's Arts Commission for public art located within the district. So that's what that line item reflects. The debt interest non-OPA IRA, this value decrease reflects lower note payments due to altered district project schedules. And the same sentiment goes for the debt principal decrease, reflects altered district project schedules. That's why you see those changes. Planning, this value increased due to additional funds being budgeted for the Health Corridor Master Planning Initiative, the HDR engagement. And finally, under agency-funded programs, this cost decrease reflects the following changes. So additions were in the Lake District, the downtown parking garage was an addition of $2.2 million. And in the River District, on the South East Way project, there was an addition of $379,000. And deletions in the Lake District was the Atlas Waterfront project, a deletion of $3.3 million, and the River District, a $5.9 million deletion for the planned Atlas Mill site. And that all just kind of goes back to timing. You know, a lot of these initiatives that we had planned would be underway and off the ground did not materialize as we hoped. And so we kind of had to realign and readjust for this budget. And so you'll see in my next segment how we're kind of rolling these dollars forward into the next fiscal year budget. So with that, I'd look for a motion if you have any conversation or discussion. Directed me to approve this draft budget and go ahead and publish a public hearing notice that we would have at the August 21st board meeting.
Looking for board action.
I make a motion that we approve the amended 2019 budget.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Do we need to add to the motion to give you permission to public?
Yes, please. So just the motion would have, just go ahead and publish prior to the August 21st, 2019 budget public hearing that I would publish this budget in the press.
So moved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Re-second.
Just checking.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2020 budget.
Bear with me here while I get this graphic up. So you also have a copy of this in front of you, but for the viewing audience, I put the proposed budget on the screen. And just to remind everybody, under Idaho Urban Renewal Law, urban renewal agencies are required to prepare and finalize budgets prior to September 1st of each year. Therefore, the Ignite CDA Board needs to review draft budgets at the July board meeting and authorize publication of the draft budgets prior to the August board meeting where a public hearing is held. So that's where we're at today at this meeting. So this is different than last year because now we have 3 districts in the fiscal year 20 budget instead of just 2. So we have the Atlas district in the line item graphic. So I'll start off with the Lake District first. Just some key budget item comments. So the estimated beginning fund balance as of October 1st, 2019 is $4.1 million. Total revenues, which is line 10 on the graphic, is expected to be $8.2 million. Total expenses, which is line 35, is projected to be $11.5 million with a resulting ending fund balance of September 30th, 2020, line 37 of $874,000. So that's kind of how it's tracking on the big picture. More specifically, on the revenue side, the estimated tax increment, which is line 4, is $5.5 million. Ignite CDA properties, we're not going to have a whole lot of income this year because we don't have many properties left in the Lake District of $2,100. The note draw on the $10 million 2017 note established in fiscal year 17, which is line 7, is $2,283,500. And this is the draw of the remaining funds available on that note to be used for the expenditure primarily in the Atlas initiative. And for the Ignite CDA property divestitures, line 8, I have $405,000 planned. This is comprised of the North Park Drive Lot 1 and the Atlas waterfront parcel. Those 2 properties are included in that $405,000. Under expenses, professional services, line 16, this is $51,630. These costs include external contract accounting services, legal services for Holly Troxel and Elam and Burke, the fiscal 2019 audit expense and other professional services. The public art line item, line 25, $110,854. Once again, this is 2% of the projected increment that would be transferred to the City of Coeur d'Alene Arts Commission. Debt interest, line 27, $184,762. This would be interest payments in the Washington Trust Bank 2016 and 2017 series notes. Debt, capital, line 28, $4.3 million. These are principal payments on the Washington Trust Bank 2016 and 2017 Lake District notes. Planning, line 30, $200,000. These are just some planning funds available for board initiatives, or should the board so choose. So once again, just remind the board and the viewing audience is that even though funds are budgeted on these line items, does not mean that the board has to spend those funds. So you have the discretion of spending $200,000 on planning funds should you so desire. Agency funded programs, this is a big number, line 31, $6.1 million. This is broken down into miscellaneous projects of $60,000, Coeur d'Alene 2030 contract at $25,000, Downtown Association event contract at $12,500, Atlas Waterfront Project Lean and Green Phase 1 improvements, $3 million. Atlas Waterfront Project Priority Improvements, Phase 1 improvements, $2.4 million. So this $2.4 million is the additional funds that the board agreed to following the past workshop with the council in building more that the capacity of the Atlas project along the waterfront. And finally, this is the final component is the Four Corners project at La Crosse BLM Park is $580,000. That emanated from the same conversation at the city council workshop. And special project reserve, line 34, $250,000. These are reserve funds for district agency related initiatives that the board should decide to use for anything that becomes a critical element for the success of the district. Any questions on the Lake District? I'll go through the same sequence for the River District. The estimated beginning fund balance of October 1st is $3.2 million. Total revenues, $5.3 million. Total expenses, $5.4 million, with resulting projected ending fund balance of September 30th, 2020 of $3.2 million. Under revenues, we have an estimated tax increment, which is line 4 of $1.6 million, and a proposed 2019 note draw, line 7 of $3.7 million, of which the plan is that $1.5 million will be loaned to the Atlas District for Phase 1 capital improvements, as we discussed. Under expenses, professional services, line 16, $34,337. Once again, this involves payments for external contract accounting services, legal services, audit expense, and other professional services. Public art, line item 25, $32,797. Once again, 2% of the increment realized goes to the city's Public Arts Commission. Debt, lines 27 and 28, interest and principal payments associated with the $3.7 million draw on the 2019 note. This also includes a $1.5 million loan to the Atlas District. Agency-funded programs, line 31, $2.4 million. This is broken down as the following. $2.1 million for budgeted for Atlas Phase 1 improvements that we discussed. $100,000 is budgeted for Atlas Park public space construction, and $250,000 budget for potential Mill River public space enhancement that the city's been talking about for quite a few years. So that's just an option out there that if the board and the city want to do something out of the Mill River development, increasing that park space, re-looking at that railroad right-of-way, we have some funds in the budget should the board choose to spend those. Any questions on the River District potential budget or proposed budget? Then finally, the Atlas District. Not a whole lot of money in the Atlas District as it just started out. It was just formed in December of last year. Estimated beginning fund balance is $0. We have no money in there. Total revenues are projected to be $1.5 million. Total expenses are projected to be $1.4 million, with an estimated funding balance of September 30th, 2020 of $96,923. So under revenues, we're not going to experience much tax increment. The assessor just doesn't see a whole lot of growth out there. $2,650, not a whole lot. Most of it's owned by the city, and the rest of it is owned by our Spokane developer, Mr. Douglas. That's really not doing much yet. So not a whole lot is projected on the tax increment front. Thus, that is why on line 9, the River District will loan the Atlas District $1.5 million to help with those capital improvements that we discussed. Under expenses, we will, per the Finance Committee conversation, we will charge the Atlas District about 5% of the general and administrative costs for the agency. So that's why you'll see some professional services line item charges, line 16 to $6,593. Public art, we will transfer $53, a little share of the minor increment that we will receive. The debt on line 27, this is an interest payment on the River District loan. It's only going to be an interest-only payment at this time, no principal, because the district will just not be generating sufficient funds to really service any type of principal debt. And line 31, the agency-funded programs, $1,284,000 budgeted for the Atlas Phase 1 improvements. So you'll see in these districts that there's a lot of money going towards the Atlas initiative per the board's direction and work with the council. So, any questions on the Atlas? Yes.
Just, and I know we have a separate line item in the agenda coming up on the audit engagement, but I'm curious, what does our audit cost?
Our audits cost $8,000.
Okay.
And that's what the recommendation will be again for the same amount of money for this fiscal 19 audit. So once again, if there's no questions, we need a motion to approve this draft budget and authorize me to go ahead and publish it for the August 21st public.
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2020 draft budget summary
And publish it.
and publish it. Thank you.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Commissioner Arman.
We have one more thing. We have the engagement letter from Hoover CPA. So, Tony, do you want to review that?
Sure. The Hoover CPA, Scott Hoover, has provided a new engagement letter to the agency to perform the fiscal year 2019 audit. The Hoover CPA proposed audit fee for fiscal year 2019 of $8,000 is unchanged from last year, as well as his professional services. So we're going to get the same product that we received last year for the same price. So I bring that forward for the board consideration.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a recommendation, or I make a motion that we approve Hoover CPA for the audit for 2019 and allow you and Tony to sign the engagement letter.
Second?
Moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Out of finance and into parking. Commissioner Jordan.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we had a fairly quiet meeting. I can just give you a few numbers here. Let's see. We have the statistics in for through third quarter. So third quarter of the second quarter, I guess. Excuse me, not third quarter, but 208,999 in 2018 and 299,000, so almost 90,000 more in 2019. 299,609, and we have, let's see, the parking permits are down a little bit, 431 in 2018 and 345 in 2019, but the revenue is up. We're up about $600 because the parking rates are up a little bit for the permits. And don't have a lot else. I understand possibly from the council we may be reviewing parking rates again. Commissioner English could touch on that, I guess. But.
Well, I would guess there's a good chance for a request.
And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Brad. Next is the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to invite Phil Boyd and Matt Anderson up to visit with the board about the Atlas Mill Site Initiative update.
Thank you, Tony. We're going to do
It's like a tag team.
a tag team, yes, but a brief, yes. I want you to, I was going to hit F5.
Seems like coordinate these
Yeah,
things,
there we go. We're going to do a brief update on the project. I'll give you an update on the design of the public space, and then Matt will give you an update on the events that we went through today with the developer outreach meeting. So my portion will be pretty brief. I did want to just update the board on where we're at with the design process. I've mentioned before that we reduced one of the buildings down here, that we had a vendor building that after Bill Greenwood got into it, determined we probably didn't really need that building. We thought it would be supportive of some uses down on the water here, and it's not, so wasn't super necessary, so why spend the money on it? And the building down here, the picnic shelter restroom building, we took the police function that they wanted to have a presence down in the park, and we integrated it into that building. So originally it was going to be a vendor and police building, and we took the police component and put it inside of that building there. So that's one of the changes that happened. The other change that happened is along this stretch, you might remember, there was 2 trails in there. They were separated, just like they are on this segment of the project, where the pedestrian gravel trail is along the water, adjacent to the water, and the wheeled trail, the paved wheeled trail, is closer to the road. We ended up having to combine those through here, so it's a 16-foot wide trail in that area in order to make the beach, the remediated beach area, feel more comfortable. Otherwise, the beach would have been very steep because we were consuming so much of it. We could have got into the railroad right-of-way or the railroad grade, but we had to take out a lot of trees. And so in balance, the design just felt better to put that combined trail through there. These are little picnic areas that will have picnic tables, so you can, get down there, pull off the trail, and have a picnic right next to the beach. Not much has changed down in this area. It's just a challenging design feature. But I think those are the major things that have changed in the design project. We had intended to be out to bid in a week from today. DEQ, who is providing us soil contamination issue along the shoreline, got delayed in their shoreline study. So we won't see their results until towards the end of July. And I don't want to put a project out to bid without knowing if we have contaminated soils along the shoreline. Because if there are contaminated soils along the shoreline and we're going to be digging into them, we have to do a hazardous materials management plan and provide guidance to the contractor on how to deal with those soils. So we're getting pushed a little bit. Our critical element is to be able to do low water work, to do work during the low water. So we still have opportunity to do that. It is diminishing our opportunity to maybe do some structured work, vertical work this fall. It just depends on what type of contractor we get. We get a big contractor, he throws a lot of people at it, they'll start on some of this work. But if you get a smaller contractor, he might choose to push more into the 2020. The objective is to have a operating and functioning park in July of 2020. So
Low water window.
the low water window starts about in November and goes through to about February, but it varies with each year. One of the things we're providing the contractors is a hydrograph, which is just literally what it sounds like. It's a graph of water elevations over the year. We'll put that in the contract documents between May and October so they can see what they're faced with and kind of plan accordingly and try to understand their risk. Because for us, we're kind of telling them, we don't care how you get it done, you just got to get it done. When the water comes up, you end up having to do more of the work from a barge versus more of it from either upland or along the shoreline. Because you can get down there because the riverbed is fairly flat through there when the water's low. Displaying that risk to a contractor in the bid documents and making them aware of it and doing those things help them more accurately bid the project.
Did they give you any indication how long the delay would be?
We'll have the results by the end of July.
Okay.
And so part of the, I don't want to call it risk, we're going to get a set of official soils sampling results, but it won't have the DEQ report behind it telling us what to do. And so what we'll do is we'll work verbally with DEQ, get their guidance, and then we'll end up doing this parallel path thing where we're putting in our contract documents what DEQ's report is going to say. So by the time our documents hit the street, DEQ's document will hit Tony's inbox telling him and the city how they need to manage the materials. You would normally do it sequentially, wait for DEQ to finish, but I'm running out of time, so I'm meeting with Steve Gill Friday to kind of work through that with him, the gentleman from DEQ, who's been a great partner to Ignite and the city on this project.
So what date do you expect to bid this then?
First week of August.
Okay, so about a week later.
Yeah.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you,
Is
sir.
there much difference in cost depending on what you're going to find, do you believe? I mean, if there's substantial remediation?
So depending on the level of contamination will dictate what we do with the soils. The initial indications, when they do a field test with a piece of field equipment, the indications are that there's not much there. When they send it to the laboratory, they get dialed in even tighter, and those are the certified results. The first level will be, there's some level of contamination on it, but we can dispose of it on site and cap it with a road. So we would bury it under a roadway. If it's at a higher level of contamination, then we actually have to haul it off-site, which that's when it really becomes an expensive proposition. Based on the field tests, and I'll caution that they're just a field test, it indicates that we won't have to haul anything off-site. So I'm hopeful, but I can't really do much until I have a set of tests in my hand.
Thanks, Phil.
Yep, so that's where we're at, and I'll turn it over to Matt. Oh, wait, sorry, there was one thing. I just got these today. That is the current rendering of the restroom, so I did want to show you that, because I think it's pretty cool. That's the restroom and the picnic shelter here. This is the police window, so
Plus the bars.
yeah, might be yeah. Yeah, it kind of looks like a concession window, but it is actually looking out on the parking lot there.
Phil, what's the size of that?
Of the room or the whole structure?
Entire structure?
That whole structure is, I think, 60 feet long. It's pretty substantial.
So it's similar to the one here at McEwen.
Yeah, it's about 20 feet bigger than the one at Memorial.
Okay.
Yeah,
It has a nice mill look to it.
which was the intention of it. And there's a potential that this picnic area might get slightly bigger, because the one at Memorial is a little bit on the small side, and the sizes of the groups, I think, that are anticipated here might be bigger. When I talked earlier about how we removed the vendor building, there was a construction budget for that project. That construction dollars may end up inside of this building, because it originally started out with, 2 toilets in it, and Bill wanted it to go to more toilets, because just of the demand on this park. From what he's seen at Memorial, he said, I really need a bigger restroom. So this facility is getting bigger, but I think that vendor building budget, the board may be asked to put that money here.
My recommendation is don't undersize this one.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make it bigger if once it's small. So.
We were just having this discussion this morning, and I was getting a little feeling in my stomach, and I told the architects, we need to go back and look at this with Bill to make sure he's absolutely happy with that depth of that, because it does feel a little smallish if you've been in the Memorial one.
That's why I asked the size of it, because, I mean, obviously from there, it's hard to see the size.
Yeah.
But I really feel that's going to be a lot of usage out there, and we don't want to undersize something.
Yeah, no, that's good feedback, especially when you look at where that's setting. It's right here, looking out on that beautiful view. I can imagine it's a high-demand facility that Bill will want to put in use.
Okay.
All right, well, I will turn it over to Matt now.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My colleague Ben Wharton and I are happy to be back supporting Welch Comer through the next phase of the Atlas Mill project. Earlier this afternoon, we had a first of our developer outreach meetings here in this room. We had, I don't know if anybody got a tally of the total number of people in attendance. It felt like it was over 30, and then we had, it sounded like a pretty good Facebook Live following, and we also had a direct outreach list through Zoom, who were also a handful of people listening in. So it was well attended, I thought. It was good discussion, a little bit light on questions, but that's not surprising in a setting like this. People are usually a little remiss to ask too many questions, but I expect we'll have a fair amount of follow-up with the list that we've put together, working with Hillary and city staff, and also some research we've been doing as to casting a fairly wide net throughout the region to make sure that we're getting the word out as to the opportunity. Some of the stuff that we went over were the phasing plans. Phil walked through a lot of the design of the project. A lot of the builders that are local and are paying attention would have seen this stuff in the past, but others, this is new to them. So it was worth kind of setting the stage as to what Ignite has put forward here as an opportunity, and then we got into the kind of the nuts and bolts of where we plan on going next steps to forecast that, but also to solicit some feedback as to the process and what we're going to be putting out on the street by way of the RFP. And just to kind of get everybody, we're in marketing mode, so we're kind of priming the pump and getting everybody to circle this and pay attention, put on the business plan for end of this year, and to really engage with us next year so we get the best results. One of the key charts that we walked through was this process graphic that really described kind of what we're doing right now, the regulatory work that's being done, the design work, the infrastructure work that Phil just talked about, and then focused a little bit on kind of the land transaction process that we're going to be going in right now. We're in the pre-market prep, this kind of early outreach, and also creation of some collateral, which I'll show in just a second, and then putting together the RFP, and then ideally we're launching that here in the fourth quarter to get that started. Following that, there'll be a series of kind of events as we work with developers, respond to questions while they're putting together proposals, then reviewing those proposals, scoring them, going back to those developers, depending on which blocks that we're looking at, and then work our way through the letter of intent and purchase and sale agreement or disposition and development agreement phases, and ultimately get properties under contract, ideally in the first half-ish of 2020. Ideally the first quarter, but holidays have a tendency to slow stuff up. So we walked through that information with them, and I think we got generally good questions, prudent questions that ranged everywhere from soil conditions to, who's doing what infrastructure to phases. So I think it was a good overall discussion. This was some of the stuff that we showed them, and I won't dwell on this too long since you've seen it a lot. But we explained a lot of kind of how we're thinking about phasing, why we're thinking about the phasing, the product mix that we've proposed or that we've shown here, but also where there's flexibility, which is really important, especially at this phase when we're doing this kind of initial outreach. We talked about the individual blocks then and kind of how we anticipate responses or developers being able to respond on one or more blocks, and that we would be flexible in looking at it that way, because the more responses and the more proposals we get, the better off. And then this is this was intended to not necessarily be presentation. It's more of a handout. So, and it's really actually the first. It's just an informational PDF of several pages talking about the property and the context, a little bit about the market, and then a lot of these graphics, this portion of it. This is essentially the first cut at what will be expanded and turned into the RFP, along with the rest of the requirements that you'd have in a public RFP as an agency. So we use this to kind of send out. It's been emailed out to a pretty long list of developers that we were directly reaching out to, and we'll continue to work on this document and grow it, and it'll ultimately come back as the RFP. Any thoughts or questions on that part?
So Matt, just a question on, you just mentioned that you have a pretty large list of vendors and developers you're working with, and I'm sure we had a sign-up sheet today, so also maybe this question goes to Hillary and to Phil, is can we send an email out to everyone that was involved to thank them for being here, include the PDF, include the link for the design standards and stuff that's on the city, so then just to make it easier for them? Because again, we're trying to solicit more feedback, sell our product.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Absolutely, and that's exactly the kind of thing we need to be doing at this phase. We're in marketing.
Maybe start
recruitment.
the question and answer list that we've mentioned earlier today, because then starting to get a Q&A page going, and just keep building it, make sure it's dynamic. And
yeah, we'll work with Hillary and the city staff on that.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Hillary.
Matt, I got a question for you. So the RFPs are going to start fourth quarter. When do you expect to start receiving those in? Is there going to be a deadline? Do you have anticipated?
There'll be a hard deadline for the
So
responses.
So can you kind of walk us through the next steps thereafter? I mean,
Yeah.
So are you going to be scoring those and then bring those scores to us to further evaluate, or how's that process going to
Well,
look?
and this will be something that we work with staff on. When we do this with public agencies, there's a number of different ways you can do it, and then there's what requirements the agency, any particular agency may have. So we'll work through that piece, but typically what we do is put out the RFP. We put scoring criteria in the RFP, because if you're going to have it, you want everybody to know what it is so that they'll create a response that maps to that. We'll weight that criteria, so you'll see, like, say, out of 200 points, there'll be 70 points allocated to the terms of the LOI or to the project team or the concept or things of that nature. So it shows where the weight's at. And then ultimately, when those proposals come in, we would create a template, and then there would be a group that would likely be made up of staff, and in this case, city staff, Ignite staff, a fairly small group who's willing to go through the process of really going deep into the RFPs or the responses, and ultimately putting together scoring, everybody scoring independently, and then you look at kind of what you have at the end. And then the next phase from that is then to go back to those, depending on what we decide our requirements are, going back and then negotiating the rest of the LOI with your top-ranked firm, top-ranked respondents on any one given block, is the way we're currently thinking we would do that. And then if you get through the LOI phase and you come to a non-binding agreement, then that gives you cause to go on into the DDA, creating the DDA. And if you get through that part of the process, you've got a binding agreement, and the feasibility clock starts, and developer gets to work.
So let me ask a follow-up there. So hypothetically, we're going to sell these in blocks, but what if, so if somebody comes in and bids on block 1, and somebody else comes in and bids on 2 or 3 blocks at a time, how are we going to weight those? I mean, it's kind of hard to weight one against the other when you're looking at 2 different products.
So to clarify, is it, so developer comes in, developer 1 proposes to buy blocks 1, 2, and 3. Developer B comes in and wants to buy block 3 only.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so at that point, we're gonna kind of require that they allocate a pricing, obviously, to each one of these blocks. So we'll know both the development concept for that block, but we'll also see the price allocation to that block. So we'll be able to say, hey, we could respond to developer 1 and say, we really like your proposal for these 2 blocks, but we prefer someone else's proposal for this block. How do you feel about that? So that gives us a lot of flexibility to choose between them. It may be that a developer puts together a really, really creative proposal, and they say, in order to do these 2, I really need that 3rd block, and here's why. And that may win the day by itself. So I think being fairly nimble is to kind of giving people the autonomy to be creative in their proposal, and then we can kind of see what we get, and we can do a little mixing and matching. You may also get a scenario where somebody wants to do part of a block, and as you've seen throughout this process, we've had anywhere from 10 to 19 blocks because we've been kind of showing this. It could be a half of a block. That may not be all that common, but it may be possible. So we're going to be we would recommend staying fairly nimble on those responses, and then taking your scoring criteria and the rationale and kind of thinking about it comprehensively. The first phase is pretty big. It needs to be big because we need to generate revenue because we got a lot of upfront costs. But there's a lot of moving parts to it. So the phase 1 is going to be the most complicated part of the process.
I like the word nimble.
Flexible.
Good.
Would it be normal to have like phase 1 completed before we put the bid out for the RFPs out?
Yeah, we were talking, that's a great question. We were talking about that earlier. It's going to depend on the response. I was really encouraged by the feedback that we got prior to this meeting in the outreach, but also the attendance in the meeting. So if we do have a really fantastic response in this, then that might indicate a really aggressive market, which would be great. So that might encourage us to move through the phase 1, get them under contract, probably sometime when they're in feasibility, or we're starting to see they are going to clear feasibility and waive feasibility. Then that would be the moment we would decide, okay, this is going well. Let's move it along.
On the next phase.
You don't want to go, so it's just a matter of kind of you're reacting at that point, and you're measuring how much do we want to push the market. We may also have some that go under contract and then fall out of contract during feasibility. So, you want to get across certain thresholds before you maybe release more.
Thanks. Commissioner English.
Question on that. I understand that the public strip, it looks like by next July, people will actually see progress and stuff. And just curious, now everything is on paper. What's the timeline that, even though people can't go down there, but when might we see an actual, kind of the roughed-in road and that kind of thing? Start seeing the actual kind of physical outlines and.
Yeah, that's a great Phil question.
Commissioner English, this road, Suzanne Road, will get constructed as part of the park, because that's the access into it. Atlas Road, which I'm calling it that because it's the extension of this road. So Atlas Road will be roughed in, probably as part of the park project as well. These other roads up in this area will not be roughed in, and neither will this one or this one as part of that project. There was a discussion earlier about soils, and Matt alluded to it. You might recall that the city funded importing soil into this area. So we prepped that site, soil's been imported, it's documented fill, you could go build on it now, because you know exactly what's there. We've gone out and dug test holes all over this Phase 1 area here. The test holes indicate less than desirable soil conditions. So now, as the master developer, you're faced with the proposition of, well, should we manipulate this site now, essentially take the soils, move them, recompact them, so this is shovel-ready, and sell it to developers? Or do you transfer that risk to the developer and say, here's the soils report, I'm telling you what's there, have a nice day, give me a price on the dirt? On this block here, you can imagine that the latter scenario diminishes the value that they're prepared to give you. So one of the things we're working on to feed back through Tony and probably back to the board is, what will it take to go in and remediate the soils in this way? We're also waiting on the data from DEQ to understand exactly what's there from a soil contamination standpoint. Because if there's something deep, and they'll say if you keep it deep and you leave it there, you're fine. If you bring it to the surface and start horsing around with it, now you're opening up a different can of worms. So again, back to my DEQ dilemma, it's hard for me to advise the board much until I have all my data in front of me. I can produce a cost estimate, a risk assessment, and bring that back to the board maybe as early as next month with a recommendation on what we might do here. So that's a long-winded explanation of answering the question of what roads you might see. For sure, this one will be rough to subgrade because it's pretty much there now. It's close to that, except in this area, we're going to raise it a fair amount. But up in this area, there's work to be done.
Phil, when you say less than desirable, when you're talking about the soil conditions there, obviously you're not 100% sure what you're going to find as far as contamination, but is there compaction issues, or what else is there?
It's compaction issues, yeah. It's essentially, the easiest way to think of it is it's unconsolidated fill material. So just over time, the site has been turned up around.
It's not native soils.
They're native soils, but envision there was a building foundation there. And they went in and said, well, we're going to demolish this building, so let's rip the foundation out of the ground. So they ripped the foundation out of the ground, and then there's a hole there, and they're like, well, let's just push some dirt into it.
I gotcha.
And so we've gone out there and dug holes all over the place and found that. And now I'm scratching my head a little bit when I get the DEQ results to kind of figure out, well, exactly what do we want to do here? Can we just get in and, if you can envision stripping one area, taking that material, stockpiling it, flopping material back into that hole, compacting it, then taking this material and moving it into that hole. The time to do that would be why we're building the park. It's just that the sequencing is not lining up real well for us. And, we've got to get the park out the door. Mm-hmm. So it might be a separate construction contract. But that's something for the board to consider here once we get our DEQ contamination results in hand. And we can show you a whole picture to consider.
Okay. Thanks. Questions or comments for this duo? Thanks, Matt.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Tony,
Thank you.
good report.
Bill, can you take me out of that up there so I can drive the show from down here?
I don't know if I do that out of habit,
Hit
but
the
I,
escape button. There you go. Okay, thank you.
there we go.
I can't read that. Is that, Nope. Bear with me. Okay, there it is. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be pinch hitting for our HDR consulting team tonight, so you get to listen to me again, which is I'm sure you're very pleased with. So this
Take
is
it
the
away.
presentation that was shared last night with City Council by Ben Weymouth with TO Engineers as part of the HDR team. Mr. English gets to sit to it again. I'm sure he appreciated it last night, and he'll even appreciate it more tonight. And he can fill any gaps that I might have. So to position myself here with this pointer. So kind of walk you through the community engagement and survey summary and the design charrette that happened last week. So just to refresh everybody's memory of the proposed Health Corridor Master Plan geographic area. This depicts the study area, Government Way, over to Northwest Boulevard, I-90 is up here, and you can kind of see the area that is being studied. As we mentioned, the Health Corridor Master Plan, the consultant team has done quite a bit of community engagement. You can kind of see the different outreach efforts on the left-hand side. A lot of interaction with the community, and you can kind of see that graphic over there of the major issues that popped up. Congestion, traffic, parking. That parking word continues to pop up in our community. So that is another element that we are addressing. So to delve a little deeper into that survey, you see the responses by element. I will not go through all of them, but just point out that most of them talked about traffic congestion. That was where the biggest energy was, about how to move traffic up there, how to better utilize the space that is in that study area. Had a visioning workshop. Mr. English is a prominent. Commissioner Garcia is there also in this graphic. We held this last month, trying to get ideation from the community on where this effort should focus on. There were door-to-door outreach efforts and pop-up meetings held at Kootenai Health to try to get further engage the community on ideas for what might benefit the Health Corridor study area. And then last week, we held a 3-day design charrette over at North Idaho College. Thanks again to Commissioner Garcia for arranging for that venue. It was a very nice venue for this event. It was a 3-day charrette where folks were invited, the public was invited, and started out with kind of big ideas. What could this place look like? And you see the designers came up with their first day and showed this to the community in the evening about possible ways to realign traffic and revision how this health corridor works. You see that even they thought about potential traffic circles on Highway 95. That did not last very long, by the way. But that's all about ideation, about how things might work. So they floated these out, they got feedback, then day 2 they went back to work and came up with the next set of designs Tuesday night, where they narrowed down their ideation, ideas, and then they took into the public input and came up with a couple more options. These orange lines depict new roads. These black lines depict potential development areas where new buildings or new structures would be developed. The green is green space, where you have green corridor areas. So this was kind of the next phase. They got feedback from the community, and then they came back on the 3rd day with the final draft concept that I'll show you here in a minute. So just to kind of go through the build-up for the final draft plan. Once again, this is the area as it exists now. The gray are the existing roads. The red is the study area boundary. So one of the big moves was to preserve and stabilize the existing residential area on the southern part of the study area. Really protect that. It's a very healthy neighborhood and not disturb it with much change. The next big moves encompass some big ticket items, primarily the idea of bringing access from the north over the interstate with an overpass. We've talked about that in the past. That's a big ticket item that might take years to materialize, but would be a real benefit to this area on moving traffic north and south, and also within the campus area. These areas here, these pink areas, are right in, right outs. So if you're coming down off on Highway 95, you would be able to take a right in to the Kootenai campus and a right out. In the same way, if you're coming this way, you'd be able to take a right out going north and a right in coming off Highway 95. These are going to be challenging because ITD is not, as we understand, a real big fan of these this close to the interstate. But this is kind of where the big moves and the heavy lifts are, and the stakeholders are very much in favor of this, and we'll work to see if we can make that happen. So these are key components to making big changes and benefits up in this corridor. And the third big move is they suggest that Ironwood get connected across from Government Way to the 3rd and 4th Street roads. And I know, as I heard Councilman McEvers last night share that the city has worked on this for a long time and has not been able to make that happen, but the design consultant said that, well, you were asked us for what needs to happen up here, and we're telling you what needs to happen, and this is one of the things that would be great to have happen. So once again, it's outside the study area, so this would be a city initiative to see if that connectivity could happen. The next step would be to straighten out Ironwood that goes from Government Way to Northwest Boulevard, to kind of take this S curve out. This would happen maybe early on in the process if the district is created. That would just help with traffic mobility. Then these would be the two primary areas where you would focus initial development opportunities. The area over here to the east of Highway 95 where Shopko is, Mountain West Bank. There's a lot of open space, a lot of surface parking, some real good opportunities for redevelopment here, as well as on the west side, helping Kootenai County, or helping Kootenai Health grow towards the west and realigning this area over here, a kind of underutilized area of development. And what that would look like is, this is the final draft plan that came out of the charrette. This will change. This is not a done deal, but this is where they were at when they left town last week. They will come back at the August 21st board meeting and give you a 90% complete draft of this idea, kind of with more well-defined elements. So just to kind of give you a walkthrough on this, you kind of see some different road alignments. Here's Ironwood straightened out, and they would have a new road network that kind of goes up on this northeastern angle with new development, a new parking garage up here. The overpass over I-90 would come down and tie into a redeveloped loop road on the Kootenai Health campus. And the way this would work is that this road expansion over the interstate would come in at about 30 feet. So it would peak about 30 feet, and then you would come down off of it into this loop road on both sides and hit these other side roads. So it would be ramping up in elevation from beginning here up to a high point and then ramping down to here. That's kind of the initial idea that the engineers came up with to kind of handle the development opportunities within the campus area, as well as kind of bring this connectivity from the north to the south. Pretty creative solution, not inexpensive by any means, but it's one of the ideas that can make this work very well. You see Kootenai Health expanding in some planning they've already done to kind of expand the hospital this way, which would tie into the new road network and the green space corridors. You also see redevelopment over here, putting some new roads through this area. This is the existing Shopko building. So the idea would be to do some road networks in here. This is that right in, right out. So you would have connectivity to Highway 95 here. You could go right out or right in, and this is the right in, right out coming south into the loop road on the campus. So those are the major components of the draft plan. I think most of you might be familiar with this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have that I can address.
Pretty quiet. No
With
comments?
that, just kind of summarizing where we're at in the process. This graphic shows back in 2017, the ULI Technical Assistance Panel generated the report that kind of led into the eligibility report for urban renewal, because the technical panel suggested that urban renewal was the best tool for redevelopment in this area, and encouraged the city to consider it for this part of the world, which they did. City Council approved the eligibility report. It asked Ignite to develop a master plan and economic feasibility study. That's what we're doing right now. We're in the process. We plan to have this plan and economic feasibility study completed by this fall, with City Council decision point at their December council meeting.
Very good. Questions or comments for Tony?
Thank you, Tony.
Lots and lots of public meetings and stuff last week. There was a lot of energy.
And then finally, Mr. Chairman, a couple initiative updates. Celtice Way, the contractor is just about done with the Celtice Way project. A few small project issues that they're working on, and hope to have a final invoice for your consideration in August. Midtown Ventures LLC Midtown Mixed Use Project. We are in the fair reuse appraisal process with the development team for the Midtown project. The appraiser has been engaged. He's working with the developers, and hopefully we will bring this back for further board conversation at the August meeting. That's all I have.
I have one quick question. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
On the traffic circles, and I go back and forth there so I can see that they're, getting some stuff ready. Do you know when that public art goes into the roundabouts, or is that part of our master?
That's part of that was part of the design, but it's up to the Arts Commission to sanction that, which they have. And my understanding is that they're going to go in the summer. I'm not sure if, I'm looking at Hillary, if Hillary might, and she does not know exactly either. So, but soon, I've been told.
Well, I see progress, so.
Yeah.
My question was where the noxious weeds just exploded out there along that project. What, are they working on that?
They
I think they
are.
came in with the topsoil that was hauled in.
They are, and I was on the tour addressing that issue. So they seeded all that with grass, and those weeds were pretty aggressive. They took over, but we looked at all those areas that were weedy, and if you part the weeds, the grass is in there. So the issue was that you had to kill the weeds or mow the weeds or whatever to release the grass. And the contractor was negotiating with the city on whose responsibility that was. I think they've remedied that. And so now they are getting close to reseeding areas that didn't take, which I guess is a minor component of the issue. But there was a little issue of the contractor thought he didn't need to do that, and the city thought he did. I think
Okay,
it's been
thanks.
mowed. I've driven out there, it's been mowed. I'm not sure if they're bouncing back already, but those are pretty aggressive weeds.
Yeah, I see that a lot too. You can have perfectly clean-looking topsoil that gets hauled into a project, and somehow the weed seeds just get spread around in it, and they just explode, just like they did out there. So you have to really manage that. So I was hoping it wasn't going to get left like that with noxious
No.
weeds. All right, thanks.
Any other
I
comments?
can make a quick comment about the public art, because I sit on I'm the Ignite representative for the Arts Commission. I did miss this month's meeting, so I apologize for that. But I do know that the gentleman who's doing the sculptures for the roundabouts has been extremely communicative and very engaged in the process. And the Arts Commission, I'm new to it, so I don't have that experience, but they're very pleasantly surprised and happy with the level of engagement and the communication. And yes, it's going to be done by the end of summer. And I think the commission, they're working on trying to figure out, they don't want people out on the roundabout, so how do we kind of launch it and announce it? So I think it's coming, it's really close.
I think Phil had a drone one time out there on one of those roundabouts. He could take some pictures of it. Thanks. Anything else? That's it, Tony? Is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Board commissioner comments. Any board commissioner comments? Seeing none, this is also the last time for public comment. Any public comment?
I'm just here because I'm interested in handicapped access on the property.
Can you come on up, please, and,
Oh, I hate doing this. Okay.
sorry.
In my old classroom, I would have had control.
Just introduce yourself, please, and
Artist Plumley, and I'm represented, or I am attempting to represent some of our handicapped community members that are wheelchair dependent. And I fell into this, asking questions about the possibility of the Jewett House, NIC Beach, Quemlin Park, actual into the water accessibility for those that are wheelchair bound, Hayden Lake and Post Falls. And that's been a request for a couple of years. And I was just listening to those requests and saying, I know a few people, I'll call a few people. And they said, have you heard about the Atlas Project? So I thought, after spending the day with my 90-year-old mom, I'll stop by here and see if we've got more
Excellent.
interesting things going on. They are concerned, or one of the concerns when I was talking about that, they were talking about booms into the water and swimming area and out at the Atlas Park. And so I was just looking for information and literature that I could give to some of these wheelchair-bound folks. Their concern, of course, is always with current and what's happening in the lakes and the rivers. In speaking with my Kiwanis group, they were real interested in, of course, Quinlan Park and access there. In talking with NIBCA, the past presidents, some of those folks, they were thinking about taking it on as a partnership project with funds and labor. Renata immediately mentioned the Jewett House, and we've already been working with NIC. So then I spoke with Christy Woods, and she said, you probably want to get to this meeting and see what you can find about what has already happened with the accessibility for wheelchair-bound folks that continuously request, particularly one of them who says it's the only time that she feels free is when she can actually get into the water and swim. It's one of the few things that she can do to get away from that chair. So high.
Well,
Like,
yeah, thank you for taking that challenge on. And
I really kind of am,
do
but
you, because, we have specific zones we have to work in, but
I do know that.
Phil, do you have an update on what we have going on at our Atlas zone?
Well,
our
working
Atlas
with Mass
district?
Place Foundation, when we built the house, I've run into a few people, and I know that we have
Come on up, please, Phil.
many
and-
permits required for that kind of a thing, so,
Sure, I'm gonna, if it's okay with.
thank you.
Absolutely, this is perfect. No, just stay right here, because I think
The,
we have
what
good
I
news
might
for
do
you.
quickly, is just scroll down and show you this picture. So this is the accessible swim area that's intended out at Atlas area. And there has been a question about the current. When the dam closes, the current is reduced, but there still is the potential for current in here. This is just a general representation. I'll tell you, I've been working on this design for a very long time, and it is extremely hard to design this with the riverbed that's there and make the accessible route functional. So we're to the point now where we've got a schematic, and we're going to be hosting a meeting for the Disability Action Council. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that group, but Virgil Edwards, we used to work with a lot on other projects here, so we're going to be hosting a meeting with them. I'm going to give you my business card when we're
Great.
done here. So that's the one area. Then there's also an accessible kayak launch that we're working on. So both of those features, we've got to the point of what just need to get with folks that will actually use it and show them what it's going to look like to confirm that they determine that it'd be functional. Because it's not a typical design feature. When you look for design publications and design guidance on this, it's not a lot of it.
This isn't a removable ramp like they have in Sweden into the ocean. We understand that.
No, this is a
Permanent
permanent
structure.
reinforced concrete structure that's actually going to be built into the river is the intent. We'll have to get a permit for it, but that is the intent, so it's kind of permanently there. Bill Greenwood's a little concerned about the long-term maintenance of it, which it does have long-term maintenance issues because you can see the railing in the water. And so that'll have to come in and out each year. And so, it's just another thing for Bill to maintain.
And Bill's been talking about this for some time.
Absolutely, and so that's why I think we're at a point where the site lends itself to it. It's close to the parking lot.
And this is a year away for that public space?
Yes.
Was that the public space you were referring to, Dan? Interesting. And so the first road that will be, if I'm understanding you correctly, the first road will be access to that public space?
Completed by the end of July.
For this particular
End of
project?
July 2020.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
It'll come in off of Suzanne, and you could come in here, park right down there, and there's the accessible swim area right down in that area. So this is Riverstone here, that's the Riverstone.
And have you done the numbers on users for that facility?
The number of people that might use it? Or the entire park?
The number of handicapped folks that might be
using that.
interested in using it?
No, that's part of what we've got enough
You're-
of a drawing to
that's part of
meet
the
with them.
plan.
Yes, to
Okay,
meet with
good.
those folks and show them where the parking's at, the count of accessible spaces that we have. It's over parked, if you will. We have more accessible spaces than are required by code.
I just noticed when I was doing Matt's Place at Foundation and writing some of the grants for them, the numbers are so difficult because they are so underreported statewide and locally as well. Even walking into the coroner's office and the health department, it got me into the back hallway, but they were saying, and I said, are you listing ALS mortality as respiratory failure? And they said, well, we're listing it as a number of things. So when we're looking at numbers for potential federal grants, for in the future and down the road, or for upkeep for the city to help Bill out with defraying those costs, my concern is always going to be, where are the numbers, and are we even aware of the community of folks that are wheelchair dependent? It could be huge. And the minute they find out about this, and it's there, or I wouldn't be here. And I'm just a listening ear saying, I know some people, I'll give them a call. But my concerns were, the parking is always a concern. The accessibility to the actual facility is also a concern. I was looking at the bathrooms, and I'm going, yeah, they can get in and out of those and maneuver corners. And so I know that we've got some good, big federal funding coming in that you could possibly do some grant money with and expand that area significantly. So, thanks.
Yep, you're
I'm
welcome.
just here
My
to
card.
report back to some interested folks, and
Thank you
thank
very
you
much.
for
Thanks,
the
Phil.
list.
And if I would just add too that, because I'm also on city council, and I can only speak as one person, but
Right.
we have had conversation. Having that element in there is a very high priority. And in terms of, okay, what's it gonna take and prioritize, that will be a high priority. And,
That's what I had heard as well, so that's why I came here.
yeah,
Because I wanted to be able to tell some of the folks, one gal is still being thrown into the lake by her high school-age children off of the Hayden Public Dock.
and I
then
would
they-
also say, just in my
pull her
day
back in.
job, which ends a week from Friday, is retiring for sure, but at the Area Agency on Aging, we also serve, besides seniors, the disability community. So
Right.
if they're not aware of that, there's a lot of connection there and potential for resources. So, yeah, that's on the radar for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That's a wrap.